Most of you by now know that I work at VIP Mortgage. A lot of you may not know why or how I got there. For us as LOs, we have a lot of options, and for me, VIP Mortgage was the perfect fit and the best place, in my opinion, to work. So if you have any questions about VIP Mortgage as an LO, or if you are a consumer and you're looking for a mortgage, you can reach out to me on social media, or you can reach out to anybody else that you may know at VIP Mortgage. And our website is vipmtginc.com. On this episode of Real Talk with Ryan Madrid, I went outside my comfort zone a little bit, and we had our first guest that wasn't actually in my inner circle of friends, so to speak. He has his own podcast, so that made it a lot easier because he was able to help lead the conversation. But the conversation flowed really nicely, and we talked about a lot of timely topics like COVID. He had the first round of his vaccine, mental health, his community involvement, and his company that he works for called evolvedMD, and how it works with primary care physicians and mental health, behavioral health physicians as well. So please welcome my new friend, Sentari Minor. Welcome back to Real Talk with Ryan Madrid. It's been a little bit since we've recorded, so we've gotten past the holiday season of 2020. And now we're here in January and recording our first guest of the new year. And this is the first guest that I've had on the show that I have not been like really good friends with. So we're excited for that aspect because it's going to put me out of my comfort zone a little bit and make it a little easier.
Although we spent a little time right before the recording. Yeah. We got to know each other. I think we'll be
good.
We'll be good.
Apparently we're best friends from other people.
We know a lot of the same people.
And so we were recommended by Ray Dom to have you on. Ray Dom from Excel, which was one of our maybe like our third or fourth guests that we had. So we have Sentari Minor on with. I don't want to say that you're with evolvedMD because that's not why you're here, but that is...
It'll be part of what we talked about.
But it is part of what we're going to talk about today. So, again, recommended highly from Ray Dom, but Sentari has his own podcast. And one of the goals with this was like we want to have some people on that have podcasts
that have done it. Okay.
And you don't probably know this, but you've been like our consultant a little bit as well.
I'm happy to help, guys. I'm happy to help.
You know, because I know my sister reached out to you and you gave her some tips along the way. So before we get into evolvedMD and some of the other stuff we want to talk about, I just wanted to touch on the podcast because when she told me you were. You had it. I hadn't really gone too deep into it until recently, and I didn't realize like how relevant you guys are with some of the topics you guys go through. And for people that don't know, I mean, he's got a pretty elaborate. What's the name of the podcast? I'm sorry.
It's called Figure It Out.
Figure It Out. That's cool. So like you guys went through the election.
Yep.
One of the other ones I saw that I was like, okay, a black man in America. Is that what it was?
Yep.
There was something about what it means to be trans with Michael Soto.
Yep.
Right. I mean, just a lot of topics that are I guess relevant now, and maybe some people don't want to touch on.
Yeah.
And he is a black man, by the way.
Yeah, that's me.
For everybody who doesn't know that.
We started the podcast the day after the 2016 election. Yeah, that's right. Mostly because the impetus or how it happened is that George and I have we're good friends.
What's George's last name?
George Grombacher. So George and I have some really heated conversation sometimes over a bottle or two of wine. And one night we were at his house, and we were just going back and forth. And his wife Emily was like, "All right, you guys got to do something with this. Like, you got to start a podcast, right?" But everyone says that all the time, right? And then once we kind of came to our senses, we were thinking, well, there's so much divisive rhetoric on Facebook. There's so many things that people want to talk about, why don't we just start one? So the day after the election, which is not, it just happened to be a coincidence. Like we were just like, let's pick the day, and it happened to be that day. And since then, we've brought on some really interesting business leaders, elected officials, you name it, we've had it on. But the idea is to move from awareness to action through figuring it out. So we'll have someone come on, kind of give a little bit about what they do, what they see in the world, and then kind of give us what would you want folks to take from this conversation, or what actionable next steps? And it's been really cool. It's been really fun.
So do you guys have different political views?
We don't have different political views, but now, I mean, as you guys are seeing, as the world is seeing, even within a particular, say, party or kind of similar viewpoints, there are factions within those. And so we have, I would say George and I are very values aligned, but in those values, there are different just nuances. And so we can get into some pretty heated conversations, but always out of, grace, mercy, love, and then come out of that with like, all right, I can hear you on this. I don't understand this, but I understand where you're coming from on this. And it's been really good to kind of get an education on how to have like very civil discourse.
Right. I mean, that's incredibly relevant to right now with what's going on in America. I mean, what's the date today? The 13th?
13th. Yep.
Okay, so February 13th. If you're not aware of what's happening, then you're lost right now. What's happening today and what's happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you're right, though. So going like into the social media world, right? I mean, this is like the worst thing because everybody's got an opinion now, and friends that were your friends may not be your friends anymore.
Yeah.
And the ability that you guys have to be able to talk about this sort of stuff and come out just like, okay, we agree to disagree on some of this stuff. And, but yeah, I'm finding that some people that I don't know that well, maybe they're like leading a charge of like maniacal sorts, like everything's a conspiracy theory, and I mean there's some crazy things going on around.
Yeah, and I've seen that too, especially on social media. It's a good way to really understand a lot about your friends or acquaintances. And I don't think it's evil. I think I was having a conversation with a buddy like right this morning, right before I arrived here. And it's a fraternity brother of mine that I quite respect, but a lot of the times there's just some mismatch in how we come to conclusions. And it's this idea of that I don't think these folks are evil or maniacal. It's just I understand how they've gotten there. Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with social media. A lot of it has to do with the fact that there's so much information out there. It's kind of hard to discern what's true, what's not. But at the end of the day, now everyone has a soapbox and an outlet to really put their opinions and thoughts out there. And some people really embrace those, and it becomes this narrative of truth that probably isn't necessarily true. But George and I have been really good about just making sure that, one, you have to approach those conversations with respect. Two, you have to be, my thing that a coach taught me is you have to be able to be at least 1% wrong about something. And so a lot of the times it's like, all right, I can hear that. Maybe I just didn't quite understand the situation. But again, the respect piece it's so necessary in these conversations.
Right. And Stuart and I, my business partner, we were talking about this a little bit yesterday. And I think it does get to a point where I've even gone, well, am I wrong?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, wow.
And that's good. And that's good.
Like, okay. I mean, you have to, like you said, that 1% has to be willing to kind of think a little bit. And we're both looked at each other like, I don't know, maybe we're wrong on this whole thing because there are people making some good points. Right. But who knows? Who knows? Right. But we're not here to get political.
You can if you want to, but no need to.
I feel like that's probably not a good idea. Not for this one today. So let's talk a little bit about. Well, actually, before we do that, I wanted to ask you, what was your favorite podcast? Which is your favorite one you've recorded?
Oh my goodness, favorite one. That's a good question. We've done a lot of really good ones. I think we did one with now Congressman Greg Stanton, but when he was mayor of Phoenix, so Mayor Stanton, that was really good. And I think it was good because it was we had a lot of guests leading up to that one, but I believe it was on that one where it really just hit home that all politics are local. And so while we have these big national conversations, what's really going to impact you is at the city and state level. And so the more that we had those guests come on, I really like those. I think recently the one that we had with Michael Soto was probably one of my favorite ones, just because I entered that conversation, and Michael's a good friend of mine, being like, I know that you're trans, but I don't quite get it. And we had to have like a really good he gave so much grace and so much mercy in that conversation. And it was, one, great to hear his experience. Two, really really kind of get ahead of what might be some misconceptions about transgender people, and then have him talk about like what should we know, or like how should we approach those conversations. And so that was probably one of my favorite ones recently.
That's awesome. Do you think? Well, how did you guys get the mayor on?
That's it's actually interesting. The folks. One of the things I love about Arizona is that people are pretty accessible. Like if you really want to get someone on a podcast or to a meeting, you can probably get them. And so I don't know who we knew in the mayor's office, but he was
you're very in touch with like the civil service side of things.
Yeah.
So you're very deep into Phoenix, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Or the Maricopa County, who knows?
The mayor at that time, that wasn't a hard one to get, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that we were actually, so Paul Pinzone, Sheriff Pinzone, we were the first podcast he's ever been on. It was it was a really cool experience. And so again, it's someone that's pretty high profile, but really accessible if you need to talk to him. And that was actually a really good one too.
That's awesome. So he was referred to you probably from somebody you knew within the
organization. His government affairs guy. It's someone I'm good friends with, and they're like, you should be on this podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about evolvedMD.
Ooh, okay.
And what you do for a living.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I know that you're out there on many boards, charitable organizations, but this is your job.
Yep.
Okay. So what is evolvedMD?
So evolvedMD is healthcare organization, innovative healthcare organization, and what we do is we're pretty much at the forefront of integrating behavioral health into primary care. So our job is to make sure that there's an integration between your physical health and your mental health. So we started about 4 years ago and have really branched out to a number of health systems and clinics around the Valley. We're also in Tucson and in northern Arizona, and now looking to expand most recently into the Salt Lake City area. But at the end of the day, we work to ensure that folks who want access to quality behavioral health services can get that in their primary care setting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So somebody that's in the behavioral health, like so they're seeing a therapist or they're in a facility or something like that. You would like broker the deal with like basically.
So think about it this way. So think about who's your physician. Do you go to like an Honor Health, or where do you go?
I go to a guy. His name's Kevin Turner. He's a private.
Okay, gotcha. So if Kevin was part of a medical group, right?
Okay.
We would embed, and a big piece of what makes us unique is that we embed a therapist into that primary care physician's office. And so if you're thinking of a medical group, 7 to 10 docs that have a thing, we then become the kind of consultants and then become the staff of that particular practice.
Okay.
So we put a therapist there. So you could say, all right, Ryan, it seems like you're displaying shortness of breath, you can't sleep. This isn't a physical thing. You're actually having a lot of anxiety. There's a therapist through evolvedMD right there. Go talk to him or her. And then we collaborate on your care. Then we create a treatment plan or a care plan to get you the help and services that you need to ultimately impact not only your mental health, but your physical health.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you get involved in that?
So I've been very, very, very candid about my mental health journey. I've had a really good therapist for quite some time, and it's been always really important for me that people know that I think there's less of a stigma now, but so many folks just aren't getting the mental and behavioral health services that they need. One, probably because of stigma. Two, from access, they don't even know where to start. And so I've just been really passionate about the mental and behavioral health piece. But concurrently, Eric Oslin, who's the founder of evolvedMD, is a good buddy of mine. And he's always kind of pinged me about like, hey, I want you to come work for me. Don't really know what that looks like. Yeah. But it would be good for us to kind of work together. And so in, I want to say August of 2020, we went out to dinner and I was like, all right, I'll listen more. And then by October I was on staff, and it's been good. And it's been great for me because it's melding the professional piece that I love and I oversee our strategy, our marketing and branding, and then the national expansion. But also I get to help people get more access to behavioral health services. And I think that's something that everyone needs.
Yeah. So obviously, like you said, you've been candid about your own personal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably been easier for you to have conversations and get involved and get passionate about the actual career.
Actually, so it's been great to actually, my day to day is to ensure that more people have access to the things that I get. And I think that we're definitely seeing, we have the stats to back this up. During the pandemic, the mental health, it's become a crisis. There's been an increase in anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and all those things are things that many people that you and I know are going through, but they just don't. One, there's a stigma, so they're like, well, these things are happening, but I don't want to see a therapist because what does that mean? Or two, they just don't have the access to it. Where do we even start? How do I make this affordable? And so we're figuring out, or we're at the forefront of figuring out, how do we not only message it, how do we make people feel good about it, but how do you put it in a place where you're already going to go? So the clinical outcomes of our model are so great because we know that people are comfortable. You know your doctor. You're going to see your doctor. You probably tell your doctor a lot of things that you wouldn't tell other people. And so we know that primary care is essentially de facto mental health care or behavioral health care. And so we are just the other piece of that to say, now here is an actual therapist, social worker that you can talk to beyond.
So this is very interesting because we dealt with this yesterday.
Okay.
Right? Yes, through the pandemic, this has been tough.
It's tough for everyone.
And it's tough, I think, within our own family. This is my sister and this is my nephew, right? But, dude, trying to find somebody that's
trying to find a therapist,
see new patients is
it's next to impossible. It's next to impossible.
And it took a lot of legwork. It took a lot of connections,
right?
Just to be able, and a favor, basically,
right?
To get somebody that I can go see, not me personally, but somebody that I'm close with, to go see for $350 an hour.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is like the good piece about, and we use a model called psychiatric collaborative care, is that essentially it is. To make it less complicated as possible for the listeners, essentially the mental health services that you would get through evolvedMD is through your primary care physician visit, right? Mm-hmm. And so for us, it's really important that anyone that goes to that doctor's office has access to a therapist. And I think about my own, I'm fortunate enough to have a therapist that it's great, but it's not cheap. Right. But I like the guy and he's great. So, and I'm sure if any listener has tried, it's really hard to find a therapist right now. Again, to your point, next to impossible unless you can find a favor.
So this is what I find out, I had this conversation with my girlfriend last night about this, because I was like, you either have to pay $350 or you have to pay a lot. It's not always that much, but it's expensive, or you have to be on Access.
Yeah.
There's no in between, because she's like, well, why don't go on Cigna, because we have Cigna insurance, go on Cigna and try to find a provider. Well, it was like 3 years, 4 years. Like it's newly people, because what's happening is their reimbursements aren't a lot. So, and they're like, okay, so I can have a full practice that I'm not seeing new patients, and I'm paying and charging anywhere from $200 to $350, $400. Why would I go make the reimbursement of $25 from the insurance company?
Right.
So the copay's, not covering it. It's not worth it. So there's talk about a pandemic. There's a problem there too, by the way, and there's a situation where people don't have the access to go get it.
Right.
So sorry to cut you off, but getting back to your primary care. So my primary care, which I love him to death, by the way, and I used to do pharmaceutical sales out of college.
Gotcha.
So he was one of the first doctors that I was calling on, and now he's my personal physician. But he's part of MD VIP, which is a concierge medicine physician group, right? I called him first person I called or texted him, said, hey, dude, do you have any referrals for me? No. Mm-hmm. Right? So you're saying the first port of contact is a lot of them, but it's not always, right, too, because he didn't even have anybody that and maybe he should, obviously, at this point. Sorry, I love you. But he should probably have a contact where we can be like, hey, this is a scenario. It was super frustrating. We did find somebody today or yesterday that we're going to see on Friday, but man, it's 6:30 at night on a Friday night.
Yeah,
that's where we're at.
It's and what we're finding is, we've done a lot of work around suicide prevention, and there's this interesting stat that we've been talking about a lot, which is 67% of those who complete suicide. 67% of people who complete suicide saw their primary care physician within 30 days of completion. So if someone has completed suicide, their doctor was probably one of the last people that they saw. So the doctor is actually the best person to catch this. If they just do some screening, we have there's a story that came out of our work of a physician that was seeing this guy, North Scottsdale, very buttoned up, very polished. He was seeing his physician, or he was seeing this patient, and then once we implemented our program, he started screening him. So we asked everyone to screen their patients for anxiety, depression, whatever that might be. So he just happened to, when he implemented our program, gave the guy the screening, asked him the questions. It's a very standard process. But once he actually started looking at the screening, he's like, "Oh, hey, you've marked, this for depression. Anything that you want to talk about? Like, is there anything on there?" Not thinking anything other than the guy would be like, "No, it's just an off day." Come to find out, this patient that he's seen for a while, someone that he's known for a while, someone that was very affluent, was like, "Actually, yeah, I sleep with a gun under my pillow. I think about killing myself every night." His wife had no idea. This guy was like, "I haven't talked to anyone about it." The doc luckily had a therapist from evolvedMD in the practice that could then talk to that person, right? And so we're seeing a lot of that. A lot of people are going through a lot of things, and sometimes your primary care physician is the only person that you're going to talk to about this. So we get to have the next step of this is a person who's qualified to actually help you with these things.
Real Talk is brought to you by Escrow, the letter S, grow. Disorganization and constant communication are huge problems in the real estate journey, and it's an issue that I think most real estate agents, well, at least some real estate agents, struggle with in their CRM systems. There's a lot of options out there, and a lot of people have different ones. And when I'm speaking with the agents that we work with, or that are our referral partners, the big hurdle is the actual creation of the templates and actually creating the automation that goes out for milestones. So Escrow kind of takes all that away. So everything's pre-written for you. You have multiple choices to go from, to choose from. I'm sorry. Visit escrowcrm.com for more information. So you guys bring like awareness to the physicians as well, right?
Yeah.
You come and say, "Hey, dude,
yes.
I'm sorry, dude. Hey, you may not know this, but like this is what's going on, and these are what the story alone right there is something that I'm gonna give you my doctor's name after this is over." But because think about, like, I've had this conversation recently, like all the kids that are freshmen in college right now, or seniors in high school. Okay.
Yep.
So you got freshmen in college that are in a dorm. Okay. They're not going to class.
Nope.
They're not walking to class. They're not going to student union. They're not going to parties. What if you're 19, 20s, you don't have an ID, you're not going to bars, which bars are pretty much worthless right now anyways. Yep. So what are those kids doing? They're sitting in a dark room all day long doing Zoom classes or playing video games pretty much, or watching TV.
Yep.
Because the only people they can socialize really with is the people in their dorms. Yep. Right? And it's like, okay, well, that's not really all that great. So the depression side of things, the kids that aren't even, so we're just starting the second semester. We started on Monday. But like I have multiple friends that have freshmen in college this year, that at U of A, ASU, Utah. My son's the only one that's doing the second semester.
Oh, wow.
Everybody else's kids have come back home, and one of my friend in Utah, his daughter's just working, dropped out. My friend that has the freshman in U of A got bad grades, and he's like, "What have you been doing?" She's like, "I go to the bar." He's like, "You have an ID?" Wow. She's like, "Yeah, I have a fake ID." And he's like, "Oh, I don't know." So he's like, "You're basically drinking every day is what you're doing instead." So the point is, we had this conversation about like where all our kids are at really right now. And even with our kids, like what are your friends doing right now? And the ones that have kind of stuck home, which is the last thing I wanted my kids to do, they're kind of like, okay, fine. They're working, they're doing the thing. They're going to Glendale Community College or Scottsdale
doing
Community
whatever,
College, whatever. It's like the ones that went away, which is like the idea of this is what we want you to do with your life. They're the ones that are miserable.
Yeah,
because they're not having a college life.
That in that age band, we're seeing a lot of again, a lot of increase in prevalence around anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. It's hard. It's very hard out there, especially for younger adults. And I think just having that access to care Another piece that I wanted to point out is that what we're also seeing is that you mentioned the physicians. What we're also seeing is physician burnout. So what we didn't realize doing this work is that you having behavioral health folks in the practice embedded there, they then hear from clinicians and staff like, I'm stressed out, like I have these things. And so a very positive externality of this has been realizing that, oh, there is a market for actually providing this for the providers. And so it's been really cool to kind of pivot and do some work with some of the physicians around their own mental health, because if you look at the prevalence rates of those who are in the medical field right now, it's sky high. Like those
Really?
Physicians are struggling, their staffs are struggling because they're seeing all of these things all at once. And so what I love about the work that we do is we also get to help them, and we're trying to figure out how do we then formalize that into a process. But yeah, that's all to say, a lot of people are struggling, and we're there to try to help as much as we can.
So the primary care physicians are struggling, or the therapists are struggling, or everybody's struggling?
Everyone's struggling, but in our world, we're helping the primary care physicians and their staff kind of figure out how do we navigate this world.
Well, I can imagine like with COVID situation, like they've got to be dealing with just like
everything.
First of all, their own business is probably. I mean, that's a whole nother aspect of like dealing with like that aspect, right? And how do you handle COVID patients? I've had it. Have you had it?
I have not had COVID.
Okay.
No.
You've taken the vaccine though.
Yeah. So I've had my first dose, and I get my second dose this upcoming Saturday.
This Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you get access to that?
So we are at the end of the day, we're a healthcare organization, and so they sent out kind of a survey. Maricopa County did or kind of a link to everyone that's in healthcare. Put your stuff in, and so it was really fascinating because it was it's very clear about like, do you see patients, blah blah blah, what's your risk. And so I didn't think I'd be able to get it. I had no idea, but then they sent it over my way, and I got scheduled. But I do think it was one of those things of, and I do think this is probably pretty smart, and I think that's actually what the country is moving towards. It's like, well, if we can justify, let's just get everyone vaccinated. So I think it was really, really important, and it's been really important for our staff and our team to really talk through, hey, it's just going to make your patients more comfortable if you have it. And so let's have a conversation about, if you oppose it, we're not here to kind of impose anything on your personal views, but at the end of the day, your patients are probably going to want this and probably feel much more comfortable with you being in person with you. So let's just do it.
Right. Yeah. You bring up that whole aspect of like not pushing it on people, but like the people that are like, I don't believe in vaccines. It's probably not a good idea. My girlfriend, she's a nurse, and she as well. She's taken it. She's taken both.
Oh, she's got both doses. Yeah.
And it was the same sort of thought process. Is like, we're around patients every day. Like it's all the physicians got it. It's it's like you got to think about like everybody else, right, and who you're coming in contact in the hospital every day too, and you're coming home, and who are you socializing with, and she can be like, yeah, I have the vaccine, but she's not out there like posting it on. From now she's going to be, but
she did once actually.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, she did on her story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She did. But she's just like, I don't want like a bunch of backlash from people.
Well, I don't think. I mean, it's been. I don't know if and I don't know if she's read the literature around how important it is for people to actually talk about it in post, because there's so many people that are not against, but just worried about the vaccine. So I was very clear about. I posted in my Instagram story, and we have as an organization posted pictures of all of our leadership team that have gotten it, just so that like our employees feel good about like, hey, Sentari, Eric, everyone else got it. They're good. They feel great, and so the greater public can know that like it's good, it's fine, you're going to be okay. It was a very, very easy process. I went through Honor Health, and it was probably the most efficient thing I've ever seen happen in person.
Really?
And so it was like, all right, this happened, it's good. Let's just get to a place where everyone has this.
Yeah. And I know that right now it's a two-step process.
Yeah. So had mine, I think the day after Christmas, I think. And then it was already scheduled for me to follow up on this upcoming Saturday. So I'm excited.
Did you have any sort of like feeling? Or
we've been talking about this in the office. We all had, I think a common thing was soreness in the injection point. So similar to a flu shot, like your arm just feels kind of crummy for 2 days. And then a little bit of fatigue at the beginning. And so right after I got it, I like got something to eat, and then kind of rested the rest of the day. But other than that, no, it's been it was totally fine. And
Right.
I cannot stress enough how easy the process was.
That's cool. And you did it at the hospital?
No, so they have this really cool way. Once you guys go through it, you'll be amazed. It's at I went through a site that's in North Phoenix. A colleague of mine, he did it through Banner at the fairgrounds, and you're in your car the entire time. It's an easy check-in process, in and out in 25 minutes. It was great.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And that's Pfizer, right?
Yeah, I got the Pfizer one.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's another one coming out. Is it Johnson & Johnson? I think it's Johnson.
No, there's
Johnson.
there's Pfizer out, there's Moderna's out, and then AstraZeneca is coming out.
Okay.
I think they're trying to get approval by the end of March.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's going to be a one-time.
Yeah, and that'll be a one-timer. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so she had the same sort of scenarios, like the soreness and,
Yeah.
and the fatigue and I'm like, well, that's like a shot.
Yeah, that's
Like,
what you're
get
gonna do with
shot.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really that.
And there's risk. There are risks to anything you're going to do in your day, and so you just gotta have to weigh those risks. And I think for me personally, it's very, very important for me to get the vaccine for a number of reasons. One, because of the things that you mentioned. Like, I just want to be safe because I'm around people, right? Like,
Yeah.
I need to do it not only for my health, but for the health of those around me. It's the right thing to do. And I think from just the economics sense, it's like we need to get to a place where the country's open again and we're free to do the things that we love to do and that we are supporting businesses and doing those things. That is only going to happen if we have a vaccine that's widely adopted by everyone.
Perfect transition.
Okay. Okay.
So obviously you're extremely involved in the community, politics, but let's get into a little bit about how it's affected how COVID has affected the community and what sort of like detriment it's been to businesses and what you see and like, just everything you're doing right now outside of evolvedMD.
Yeah, so we, George and I pivoted our podcast for a bit, like at the beginning of COVID, to talk about reopening and what that would look like. So we had, for instance, the Children's Museum of Phoenix on. We had a couple of restaurateurs on, and it's hard. It's been really hard for Phoenix businesses. Some of my favorite restaurants have been on the brink of shutting down, and that's really hard to take on. But I do think people are getting through it. I do think that it was, from my standpoint, and so I'm not going to make this political. I'm going to try not to make it political.
Feel free to go for it, bro.
Well, no, I'm saying I am thankful that we did not go through another complete lockdown because I think that would have decimated the state. And so we just have to get to a point where we're doing the things to mitigate. So a thing that I would like for people to realize is that, like, all right, if we don't go through another lockdown, we need you to do the right things, which is like I saw on someone's Instagram story. They were at this kind of underground party with 150 people, right? It's somewhere in Scottsdale. I have no idea where they were. But it's like, this is going to keep these things shut down. So stop doing that. Wear a mask. Just do the normal things that they're saying for the sake of businesses.
Yeah.
And there was, I forget who wrote it in Phoenix Business Journal, but there was a great article, and it might have been someone from the Arizona Commerce Authority. Don't quote me on that, but it was pretty much like, to save businesses, just do the right thing. And that's where I am right now. And totally agree. It's like, if you want Arizona to reopen, you need to do the things. You just have to. Like, we know the things that mitigate against. We know what's been proven. So let's just do those things so we can get back to business and back to work.
Some people just won't do it.
Some people won't do it.
They just won't do it.
It's hard. And you hear around the holidays, it was I've had so many conversations about should I judge people for wanting to have Christmas dinner with their family? No, because I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, it's like, you probably shouldn't be having Christmas dinner with your family if you want this to go away. So it's a lose-lose situation. There's no right answer. But I do think, like, wearing a mask, social distancing, and just making good choices is like, if I could have people do those three things, I think we'd be closer to, and get the vaccine. It could be closer to opening back up.
Well, I mean, I heard somebody say the other day, it's not if, it's just when you're going to get it.
You're going to get it, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's the argument on the other side. Like let's just like continue to move on. We're all going to get it, and some people are going to die, and which is a crazy. It's like saying like, okay, well, some people are going to die. Well, that's a hard one to wrap my head around.
I think it was, I would say I was probably one of those people at the beginning. It's easy to wrap your head around in March of last year when, like, you didn't really know anyone that got sick from it, and like the numbers were so low. But now it's like it should be criminal to not think about this in a way of like, banners at the brink of like, you could try to get into the ER, but like, good luck depending on the day. So don't break your arm, Ryan, like, because you may or may not get care. Yeah. We're there now. And then now I'm in the place where I have a good buddy he's in a medically induced coma right now, double respiratory failure. Young, 41, does jiu-jitsu, really active, and who knows if he pulls through, right? And the more you hear more about that, it's like, well, this is why it's important. And I bet he wished he made better decisions so he didn't get it, right? And so, people are going to die, but we shouldn't take that lightly. And it's, and also the hard part is like the taking it lightly, the actually doing things about it. It's like, just wear a mask and don't go to a party with 100 people. Like, we're not asking you to completely change your world.
Yeah.
We went through the lockdown. We're not doing that again, but we are asking you to make some sacrifices and make those sacrifices. And I'll be the first to say, like, I slip up. I've done something that's probably not the best. And so people are going to be human, but for the most part, you got to just do the right things.
Yeah. Well, I had a breakfast appointment, a lunch appointment, and then a happy hour appointment last week.
Okay.
Which is probably against everything.
Every rule.
Every rule. But I went to specific restaurants that have their own, they have their rules and regulations and how where you're going to sit. I would say that every one of them looked as if nothing was going on. And of course, I'm not going to name names, but there's successful, popular restaurants in this town.
That's been hard to see.
I saw you that same day.
That's been hard to see.
And so, it's weird. Like, you walk in, you're like thinking, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
Nothing's going on. Every booth's full. Everybody walks in with a mask, but
that's been ever since I want to say September. I was at a dinner inside, and two of like the 6 that I was with got it. So I got the text on Tuesday from both of them. It was like, "Hey, I'm COVID positive." I was like,
yeah.
Luckily did not have it. But since then, I don't think I've been inside of it. I've like walked through a restaurant to get to the patio, but I've only done patio seating. And Phoenix is like the best place for that, right?
Oh,
so I don't understand.
Right now, right?
Whenever I look in, I'm like, why are you guys inside?
Yeah.
But it's hard. And it's also hard to like, given the work that you and I do, if you have a meeting and someone's like, well, we want to sit inside. It's like, I'm not going to tell a prospect or someone that respect, like, hey, no. So it's just it's good to set those boundaries ahead of time, but like, I get it. I don't know if I agree with the kind of some of the, and I've seen the inside of some of those restaurants. It's like, is no one checking in on this? But it is what it is.
Well, I mean, like when it was it's really bad right now because I think we're the worst in the world, right?
Yep,
okay.
No.
Well, say like 4 months ago when everything in like Old Town was being shut down and people were like, Ducey came in and he was just, everybody was flipping out and then they'd reopen and then they get shut down again. And it's a tough deal. Like Brazo, West Valley, I think they have 190 beds or 180 beds, and 110 of those beds are COVID patients.
Yep.
And they've now, they're in the PACU now with COVID patients. So, not that, I don't know what the percentages of deaths are or if most of those people are going to end up being fine, but, it's a real thing. I mean, It is what it is. We're a year from now, I hope we're just like everybody's good and we're vaccinated and people are just moving on and we're like, damn, that was terrible. But who knows, man?
We've talked a lot as a leadership team at our work of what I've implored some folks to think about is like, all right, say you're completely fine.
Yeah.
You don't get hospitalized, but if you're a therapist or a physician, you have to quarantine for 10 days. So you can't do your work, which means that I now have an asset out for 10 days. So the economic impact to a business is it's hard. So if you do something that you can't do telehealth, or you're not going to go to the hospital, but you're so sick that you can't function for 10 days, that hits my bottom line. And I think a lot of business or a lot of people are like, well, it's totally fine. It's like, well, if you have 20 physicians out in a day, that's not good. Or if you have 20 of your sales team out because they went out the weekend, they got COVID, they're not going to die, but they can't work for 10 days. That hurts you. And so I wish more and more people would think about those things.
Yeah, I mean, healthcare workers, it's like, and then there's the patient side, especially in the mental health side, right? So you have a therapist that can't see their patients. Now the patients,
who knows what happened? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's scary.
It's hard.
That's super scary. All right, so we don't have that much time left because I know you're in a hurry. So I want to talk about, you have other things you have to do. I shouldn't say hurry. So other stuff outside, like some of the other community involvement stuff, because I think you do it so much. Like your bio is pretty extensive on all the stuff that you've got going on. So let's talk a little about the other things you're involved with from boards and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. So I think I'm trying to think of what takes a lot of my time. So I'm in the executive committee of Goodwill of Central and Northern Arizona, which is a great organization. I got connected to Goodwill via my podcast. Actually, we had Tim O'Neill on, who's the CEO. Great, just one of the most dynamic leaders I've ever met. We had him on our podcast and just started having conversations with him, and then started joining the board of directors probably 2 years ago. And it's been that's been a rewarding thing. I sit on the board of Adelante Healthcare, so we're a federally qualified health center. Really started in the migrant farm working field, and then now offer. The idea is to offer exceptional healthcare to anyone that needs it. And I'm trying to think, where else do I what other Zoom calls?
Those are so Adelante's out like Surprise.
Yeah, so we have 10 or 11 locations all over the valley. Adelante Healthcare, they're my primary care physician. We have a partnership at St. Joe's Hospital down Dignity Health, and so I live in Encanto, so right down the street from me, there's an Adelante site, and I go there. Those are the two that
that you're
really involved in. I recently rejoined Social Venture Partners as a partner, so we'll be doing a lot of work there. But yeah, I think I did a presentation for the Arizona Good Business Summit, which is put on by Local First Arizona, and talked a lot about the importance of business leaders being involved in the community. Not only just because it's just a good thing to do, but to have your pulse on what's happening in Phoenix. It can only help your business. And there's so much research from Edelman and Pew around and Gallup around the idea that your customers want you to be engaged, your employees want you to be engaged, so you need to be engaged. And so I've always had that through line and thought around, all right, if I'm going to be a part of the leadership of a team or the executive committee of something, I need to know what's happening and I need to be involved. And so you're seeing a lot more CEOs, owners, entrepreneurs getting engaged in ways that they probably haven't really thought about before. But now it's absolutely necessary.
So the private sector people moving into the community, doing big things.
Yeah.
That's definitely happening a lot.
Yeah, it's happening a lot, and a big piece of that presentation I do is how much consumers want. They believe that CEOs should drive the conversation around social impact, because they're going to do it before and better than the government. So right now you're seeing that as the fallout from last week, where you had J.P. Morgan Chase, Blue Cross Blue Shield, all these groups saying we're no longer giving political donations, we're not doing this anymore.
Home Depot.
Yeah, Home Depot. The CEO of Home Depot, who has been the biggest Trump supporter, by the way,
I read
pretty much saying last week was horrific. Anyone who saw that doesn't believe it is insane, and I'm going to make sure that Joe Biden is the most successful president of all time. And this is someone who's been Trump's biggest donor.
He's the biggest Republican Party donor, I think.
Yeah,
ever.
And for him to say that, and so he
says he felt like he got he was bamboozled or something like that. He's just I felt like I just completely I cannot believe this has happened to me.
And so that's a private sector leader that's going to drive the conversation and push it forward. And then I don't know if you guys saw Monday, all the Arizona leadership organizations Greater Phoenix Leadership, the Greater Phoenix Chamber, and some others released a joint statement imploring that this legislative session focus on rebuilding Arizona, not partisan politics, which I think is so cool. And it's going to be those business leaders who GPL had a great thing that came out that was pretty much if you're part of if you're part of the Republican Party that was involved in anything last week at the Capitol, we're not supporting you. We're pulling out donations, we're pulling out memberships, we're pulling out all these things. So business leaders are actually saying we and business leaders do have the power. We have the power. We have the influence. We need to do something about this. We're going to be the ones that drive the conversation, which I'm loving. It's been so cool. It's been so
awesome.
Cool to see.
So is GPL
Greater Phoenix Leadership? It's I believe that the criteria is that you hold the highest position in Phoenix or Arizona for your company. So even if you're a regional VP or regional VP, but you're the highest person in Arizona, you can serve on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I think that's the criteria. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So per industry, if there was a CEO, you're probably not going to get in with that other.
No, it's not. It's not industry specific. I think GPL. It's every major company.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So Trish, So we kind of we like to wrap it up a little bit,
Okay.
and Trisha's probably going to get caught off guard here a little bit, but with not really fast questions, quick.
Ooh, I love
quick
this.
answered
Cool.
questions,
I'm super excited.
So we have, Ray. I'll bring Ray Dom in again here, dude.
He had some amazing
he had some answers.
Okay.
We were all like,
Okay, I got to beat Ray.
we're
Okay,
losers.
okay,
We
let's
need to
go.
figure it out. And I'll just throw out while she's pulling that up there. One of the questions was, well, actually, it wasn't to Ray, but what was your favorite movie? And I got Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
From the person that I would have never in a million years ever thought that would be the answer that came out of his mouth. Was Wizard of Oz. So one of the questions was what's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Oh, I can't pick one.
All right, top three.
Top three movies. Oh, go. Interstellar, Rat Race, and Armageddon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Rat Race.
Rat Race
Rat
is probably
Race.
the funniest movie I've
Yeah.
ever seen. Yeah.
That's a cult following sort of Dazed and Confused sort of
Yep.
type of movie. Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah, go
one
for
up
it.
then? Okay. This is one we've asked before, but it's probably my favorite word or my favorite question is, what is your favorite word?
Favorite word? Oh, oh my God. Favorite word. In a lot of the any poetry that I've had published, I use the word verdant, which is like green space. So like a verdant valley. I love that word.
You're a poet also?
I'm an amateur poet. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't pick that up on your bio.
He's keeping it's a mystery.
Yeah, it's like peeling back an onion, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a fun one we've never asked. What is your most used emoji?
Most used emoji is probably the crying face because I laugh a lot and I find myself funny. So I'll text something to someone and then put that crying face.
Okay, it's a good one. Same.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Same. Okay, if you could trade lives with anyone for a day, who would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. I haven't heard that one yet either.
Oh man, I have an answer, but I don't want to be judged by it. Probably for just a day, probably Kim Kardashian. Like that would be. Could you imagine? I was watching Oh God, I'm gonna be so judged after this. I was watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians this weekend, and there was like it was an episode where they first started quarantining, and they were like, it's so hard. It's like Kim's Palm Springs house. It's like one of the three houses she's going to that week. It was great.
Yeah. Oh God, that's good.
Okay, so Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram?
Instagram.
Okay, why?
It's a quicker dopamine fix probably. It's fun. Facebook has become like if you guys should follow me on Facebook. It's like I get into I post a lot of articles. So if you want to just follow me on Facebook,
Okay.
but that starts a lot of dialogue that has become actually exhausting. But Instagram is just like pictures, funny memes. It's easy. It's good. I like it.
Okay, last one.
Ooh.
What is something you can't do? Since clearly you are very good at a lot of things, what is something you can't do? And, well, pick one. I'm sure there's got to be at least one.
No. I'll tell you three. I talk about these three things all the time. I'm really bad at geography, terrible at Roman numerals, can't figure out time zones.
Wow, the fact that you knew those
Oh yeah.
right off the top of your head.
If you want to schedule a meeting
That
with
means
me
he's
and you're
very
in Florida,
self-aware.
like if you're
Wow.
anywhere on the East Coast, I'm like I don't know. I have no idea.
Did you
how
know
to do
that
this.
it's 1 hour behind in California?
I functionally I knew that, but I wouldn't be able to like do anything with that.
Okay.
Okay, actually, I do have one more.
Oh,
question.
perfect.
All right, where is your happy place?
My happy place is in a movie theater. So prior to COVID, I would probably be in a movie at AMC Esplanade 3 times a week. And so
By yourself?
By myself. One of the things I'd build in my day is like, I'm just going to go see a movie, literally anything, any movie that would be out. And I'm hoping we can go back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I either read it on a blog or I heard it in one of your podcasts, and I was blown away because I love movies too. And if you go with a family, it's a fortune, right? And to go by yourself, I haven't got myself there. Where
I
super
love
comfortable,
going to movies.
But I'm inspired to do that
Please,
once we can.
Once you can. Yeah,
I
once you
can relate with this one, so this is my story before we wrap this up. So when I was in medical device sales, I traveled a ton. So part of my day, at night, I'd be like, cool, what time do I get done? Because I got to see what time the movies are. Like, what time? So I'd do like the basic Chili's, Outback Steakhouse, and I'd go to the movie theater.
see a
So I was
movie,
in
good.
Vegas, New Mexico, here. I loved going by myself because you don't go to the movies and you don't talk to anybody when you're in the movie.
That's why I'm like, why do you need to go with someone?
Yeah, so you go and you'd be surprised how many single spots there are in movies. There's a lot of people that do that, and I'm the same way. I love movies. I love watching them. Going to the movie theater by myself was a really big deal. Did you know that right now that you can rent a theater out?
I did know that.
I did not know that,
and it's not very expensive.
It wasn't expensive. Like my friends did it. Just his wife and kid. They rented it out, and it was not expensive at all. It was like $300 or something.
Pretty cheap.
Like
Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't expensive at all, and it was the Harkins at Fashion Square.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Wow.
that's that. So anyways, thank you so much for coming on.
This is awesome. This is so fun.
Yeah, I'm glad that we got through the first
You did great.
Hey,
it was fantastic.
I did it. Everybody
it was
give me
good.
a round of applause. So anyways, thank you so much for coming. It was a treat. Thanks, Ray, for setting this up. Thank you, Trisha, for doing what you do. She does all the production stuff.
She's amazing.
And Trey, my godson / nephew, post-production work. Thank God that he has roommates in LA that have COVID, so he didn't get to go back.
Oh my God.
So he can be here today helping us with our
I hope
our
they're
new
okay, by the
lights.
way. I hope they're okay.
Yeah, that didn't come out right. I'm sorry that they have COVID, but it allowed Trey not to go back to LA.
Fair.
That's all I meant. You know what I meant. And because these are new, everything's new. We talked a little bit about getting new equipment and stuff. So we're making mistakes, but we're coming
You're a work
through.
in progress. I dig it.
And our YouTube, how to do a podcast, will be out in 1 year.
Love it.
All right. Thanks again to VIP Mortgage for having us here. And thank you to Escrow and to Tsunami. And thanks again to everybody that comes on board and watches us on YouTube, likes and subscribes. Go on to our Instagram. Trisha, why don't you tell everybody what that is?
At Real Talk with Ryan Madrid.
I say the Real Talk, and she pisses her off. At
It does.
Real Talk with Ryan Madrid. And
Same for Facebook.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for listening, and we appreciate it. Thanks.
Bye.
Real Talk is brought to you by Tsunami. We all know that we should be doing more videos than we are doing. And one of the hesitations for myself is that I don't feel like I do a very good job filming them. I get nervous about the way they're going to look. And I am pretty sure that most people feel the same way as I do. So Tsunami is a product that will allow you to film your own videos. And you can send those videos via the app that you can download it on the App Store. And they will make the video look professional because it is done by a professional editing team. So you want a header, you want a footer, you want to just look better in general. And for the cost, it's unbelievably inexpensive. So if you're looking for video help, this is the best way to go about doing it, especially if you want to film videos on your phone like we all should. So it's Tsunami with an X, and that's it.